So today we're talking about the global passives. Now, I do want to preface this video that if you are going to still keep on playing the game, I see nothing wrong with that. It's just for me, this is really not the direction I want to go in terms of playing this game. There are probably going to be a lot of people who aren't okay with it, and I've seen a lot of people talk about how they're okay with it, but a lot of people are also just going to be quitting the game because of this, because a lot of people played for the end game, and now that the end game is kind of going into a sour state, in our opinions, um, it's just leading a lot of people to not be happy with the company, especially seeing other things Hoyo has done in the past. So I just wanted to preface that if you want to still keep on playing the game, I see no problem with that. This is just me talking about my opinions on how they could have implemented global passives in a way that is better, and how they could have gone about the same sort of thing without hurting the game and without hurting as much of the player base, especially the player base that was more focused on doing endgame and clearing all that type of stuff. So I just wanted to preface that. No hate to anyone who keeps on playing the game, but this is why I'm not. So the worst thing that we were expecting happened in the 3.2 live stream, and they decided to confirm that global passives were going to be a thing. And people in general, you'll already see, are not too happy with this. There's a lot of people who are talking about quitting the game because of this happening. And I'm going to be one of those people as well, because the global passives, as well as how bad the current endgame is and how bad the endgame's been getting, are very concerning. And it makes it so that basically the only way you're going to be able to clear new content is by just pulling characters or hyper building and investing like an insane amount into these teams, which will eventually get outdated anyway. So it just kind of feels bad. If you look at an example being Dot, you'll see that Dot character specifically, right? You have Kafka, Black Swan, those characters. Now Kafka is getting a buff, but even regardless of that, they're pushing out old teams. Teams that used to be strong are just not very strong anymore. Like teams like Jingliu teams are pretty much just have fallen out of the meta so far, especially with the implementation of like Super Break. And then you have the Fei Xiao teams, and you had the Acheron teams, and then you had the Herda teams with the Reminiscence, and you had so many different types of teams that just kept on getting added to the game. That is just pushing old teams behind, and they're not adding new units for these types of teams to kind of expand off of them. There's been nothing to add to Dot to make it better. There's been nothing really to add to Jingliu to make it better, although you could say Tribi, but Tribi just makes everyone better, so that's not really a valid argument. And a lot of the 4-stars have also just kind of fallen off as time goes on. There's not too many good 4-stars. You have Gallagher, Tingyun. Yeah, I don't think out of any of these 4-stars is really anyone else useful. I mean, Herda is useful. March 7th can be useful in certain teams. But you're like seeing, as time goes on, they're just moving farther and farther and farther and farther and farther and farther away from how the game used to be and how it used to be. There were so many characters that are usable in the teams that you could build. But with the power and creep recently, the current MOC floor 10 has as much as MOC floor 12 did like a couple of months ago. And that's an insane increase in HP, especially for a lot of those bosses. And this is just starting to make the end game so it's more pay to win and more scaled towards pay to win. And you know what? I'm just not really interested in that sort of pay to win thing. I'm a lot more, I guess, I wouldn't say excited, but a lot more interested in games where you can still use a 1.0 character to clear the content in 2.0. Like in Wuthering Waves, you still have pretty much every character still being strong. In Genshin, you have the 4-stars like Zhangling, Xingqiu, Bennett. Like that team in Genshin is still powerful to this day, right? You have, well, I was going to say Honkai Impact 3rd, but Honkai Impact 3rd has had a pretty decent amount of power creep. Although I wouldn't say it's as bad as HSR. But in general, it's like you are power creeping these characters so much. And what global passives do specifically is add more power creep onto that, because they'll eventually add characters where it's like, oh, if you have this character, you get a global passive of like 10, 20, 30% attack. Like that would be absolutely insane. Or it could be even like a global passive of like 10 speed to all your characters. And these are just insane stat boosts that would take a very long time and be very hard to get, which is artifacts alone. One of the other big issues is that we can expect pretty much all the characters that come out in Amphorius to have these sort of global passives and to be, right, those type of characters that are going to do this. It's not just going to be Casters. If you think that Casters is going to be the end of global passives, you're wrong. It's going to be more and more and more characters in the future. And what's making it so that they won't power creep global passives and make those even worse and make those global passives even stronger? The Casters' global passive, being able to revive a teammate, is already insanely strong, with it, especially considering how hard some of these bosses hit in the endgame content. So it can save you entire runs just by having a single revive. And this matters even when she's not on the team, right? For Bailu, at least, Bailu's revive was pretty strong, but people didn't really use Bailu that much just because she didn't offer any other value. But you can still get that revive and then rock a support or sustain like Quoho or Lingsha or Gallagher, and you can rock those other supports while still being able to get all of those bonuses. And it's like, that is just insanely strong. And I feel like this is the wrong way to go about implementing global passives and locking them behind having specific characters. I think a better way to do it would be like how they have for Divergent Universe. You can collect these little consumables. Look right here. Okay. So in Divergent Universe, follow-up attack damage dealt by characters increases by 3%. They could have just done something like this, where you could have some sort of like maybe new thing up here. Like, see how you have all your statuses. They could have a new area where you can just click on it and then you could go upgrade your stuff. Maybe you get specific materials from doing specific quests. There's so many other ways you could implement global passives that would have just been better rather than locking them behind a character. And if you did want to do it behind a character, maybe make it so that the revive thing goes to everyone, right? But maybe naturally you only revive your character to 50% HP normally, but if you have Casterus, it revives it to like 75% HP. That would be a better way to do it, so that there's a less power creep there. Or maybe everyone gets 5% attack, and then if you have the character, you get like 7.5. So it still gives you more, and it still incentivizes pulling, but the power creep isn't as bad. There's other ways to go about this that wouldn't be as harmful, right? It could be like in Casterus' thing, it's like, oh, this remembrance die, or a remembrance character, it's like, oh wait, Casterus is a remembrance. Okay, so it could be like a remembrance dice or something, or remembrance thing, where, okay, revives your fallen teammate after they die, increases them to like 50% at like level 1. You could like level it up by doing exploration or a quest or something like that. And then on top of that, you could have it so that, okay, Casterus increases this by 20%. So maybe if you max out the tree, you get like 80%, but if you max out the tree and have Casterus, you get 100%. Like something like that, I feel like would just make more sense, and it would make it so that there would be less pay to win aspect. Like, sure, you're still getting having that pay to win aspect, right? $300 character, obviously, as characters are super expensive in this game, and you still get the bonus. But if you were to do it in the way I'm saying, it just works a lot better and it's more free to play friendly, especially with the amount of boss HP that is increasing. The global passives are only going to make this increase more. So if the boss's HP is already increasing by like 5% per patch, I don't know exactly what it is. I just remember the kind of stat that it is definitely going up. You can make it so that it still goes up, but you're also giving players global passives to account for that. Then it makes people want to encourage with the content more and engage with it. Increases your the engagement of players by being like, okay, you just go unlock all the chests in this area, which won't take that long because exploration in HSR really isn't that time consuming. And then you get like a little bonus and it'll be like, okay, an incentive to explore the area. Then you also get something. And then it also helps players keep up with the increase in HP if they want to do that increase in HP. And that's the solution that I would have implemented, but it's already too late for that, right? Global passives are already here. They're going to get worse. If you don't think global passives are going to get stronger, then they probably will. Now, the Casterus one is already incredibly OP, but as more and more characters start to come out and more of them build up, it's also going to encourage people to pull for global passive characters over normal characters. So maybe you want a specific character, but if you get that character, you're going to be losing out on like 10% attack, right? Which could hurt when it comes to clearing the ending content and getting more pulls. So you may be incentivized to pull for something else. It's basically just making it so that the end game for this game is just not as good anymore. And it used to be not even that bad, but over time, it's gone from one of the best end games in gacha games, in my opinion, to one of the worst that is just unbalanced and just getting out of proportion. Having too much focus on new characters and power creep is just never a good thing. It's one of the reasons why I, even despite having around 500 days, okay, so yeah, I have 534 days active in this game, right? Which it's been out for almost it's been out for about 700 days, so 534 out of like 700 days I've signed in. This is a game I like, and this is a game I want to succeed, but they're doing stuff like this and I just can't support it anymore. So yeah, it's ultimately not a video I wanted to make, not a video I wanted to talk about, but the direction they're going with the game, I'm not going to support it anymore, and I'm not going to play it if they're just going to go down this route. If you still want to continue to enjoy the game, then by all means do. I have no problem with people who want to continue the game after this. If you want to continue to play the game, do it. It's just, for me, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to support this company anymore.